Healthcare and senior care is fraught with problems and challenges, but we're also seeing some amazing new clinical treatments and resources. This show will help illuminate and uncover the good, bad, the ugly in order to equip patients, families, and other healthcare providers. Welcome to Senior Care Confidential. Hi, this is Brian Harmon with Nexus Home Healthcare, and I'm joined with my co-host, Joe Alch with Joy Care Management. This is our very first show, and we're excited to present this with you guys. The name of the show is called Senior Care Confidential, and the idea behind the show was to help to highlight not only the challenges that we see in today's current healthcare system, but also some of the innovative practices that we see coming up that will be very helpful and kind of equip the seniors and family members as well as other healthcare professionals to get access to better care.
And today, this is our first episode. We're so excited, and Brian is just the best physical therapist in DFW. And so what a better co-host to work with than Brian. But as a registered nurse, I've been a nurse for 27 years. And the one thing that bothers me the most is our patients, not just seniors, but all ages, that don't have a voice.
Yep.
Their family doesn't have a voice. They're not getting questions answered. And that has happened in my own family where I've had a family member in the hospital and they don't understand what is going on. And so we need to change those things in healthcare. But these friends of mine, dear friends, Deedee and Ben Spencer, Ben has a very special story to tell. Deedee, his wife, walked alongside him, this incredible story. And so we're so excited to have you guys. So we're just going to go ahead and get started and start asking questions. And we're just so appreciative that you're here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Excited to be here.
So this is a big story. So Ben, tell us about the day that changed your life.
The day that changed my life was March the 26th, 1987. I was in bed, had taken a nap, taken some Tylenols, had a headache, and I was awakened by someone knocking on the door. And I was expecting a guy by the name of Charles Stewart to come by because he'd asked me to follow him to his girlfriend's house her job to drop off her car. And so I get up and I see the clock is 2:30, so I expected it's Charles Stewart. So I head toward the front door, and as I'm heading toward the front door, I noticed that I saw police cars parked out in front of the house. So I opened the door, and of course there was an investigator and a uniformed police officer standing at the door. And he asked me a question, and I didn't understand the question. So I asked him, what did he say? And he asked me, did I have any ID? And I told him, of course, and I handed my ID. He took the ID and told me to turn around, face the wall. I was under arrest. I asked him what for. He said, I'll tell you in a minute. So at that time, he took me out to his car, placed me in the car. And once he got in the car, he asked me, did you know anything about the white guy they found in the street the other day? I said, I heard about it. So he said, well, that's what you're under arrest for, his murder. So that was the day that changed my life, March 26, 1987.
Wow.
Deedee, when you got this news, tell us where you were and how you got the news.
I was actually at work, and Ben's sister Janet called and told me that Ben was being arrested. She asked me, did I know where he was? And I told her, yeah, he was at home resting because he had a headache. And he was actually supposed to go to the doctor that evening. So he should be at home resting. And she said, well, the police is at y'all's house and he's being arrested.
Wow. And did you guys have any contact like at that point when they whisked you away and you were at work?
No.
Okay.
So how long was it before you could even talk to each other?
He called home. Ben called home that evening after I got home from work.
It was later on that night.
Later on.
Because after I was arrested, they took me downtown, took me to a room and began interrogating me, asking me questions about the day of the offense. Of course, I began to answer the question. Give them the answers that I knew, which was my whereabouts the day of March 22nd, 1987. And so I didn't get to call Deborah until, I want to say it was after I got put in a holdover, because I didn't get a chance to use the phone until after that.
Wow.
Wow. So walk us through like the court case and then like your first few months in prison.
The court case, I was tried in October of 1987 for the original charge was capital murder, but when we made it to trial in October '87, the DA elected not to try me for capital murder, and he tried me for murder. In that jury, in that trial rather, I was convicted and sentenced to 35 years non-aggravated.
Wow.
And of course, there was some question about my employment, and it was testified that I had been terminated prior to the offense taking place. Because part of my defense was that I had a job, no need for me to have committed such a crime as they were charging me with. And of course, there was this lady came from my job and from the personnel department. She testified that I had been terminated 2 days prior to the offense. Of course, there was a lady by the name of Gladys Oliver who testified, and she testified she didn't know anything about a reward, wasn't interested in a reward, and it was discovered while the jury was deliberating and returning a guilty verdict that she actually didn't call the investigator she had testified, but she called Crime Stoppers. So it was clear that she did know about the reward and that she was out.
And the jury was not aware of that
No.
when they deliberated.
No. So
my goodness.
the judge who was actually who should have been hearing my case, his name was Jack Hampton, he granted a motion for a new trial. And in March of 1988, I was tried again, charged with aggravated robbery in this trial, was convicted by a jury and sentenced to life.
Where were you in between those two trials? Were you imprisoned then, or were you able to go
In
home?
the county jail.
In the county jail.
Actually, from the day of my arrest, I was in the county jail.
Dee Dee, I know you two were newlyweds. You were only married a couple of months when this happened. But what else was going on? You had just found out something else.
We just found out we was pregnant. We were 7 months pregnant.
Wow. So when you were whisked away to prison, are you able to say goodbyes at that time? Like how does that process work?
No.
We had no goodbyes.
No goodbyes.
No goodbyes.
So pregnant with a new one on the way, and
He
your
was
husband is
snatched
found
away.
guilty and just poof, gone.
So were you in the courtroom?
No,
The
I
whole
wasn't able to sit in the courtroom through both trials because I was his wife and I was considered a witness.
Wow.
So I didn't hear anything until he called at night to tell me.
Wow.
That's horrible. So your family, none of your family, your mother, nobody could have been in the room with you?
No, they were in the courtroom when the trial
His
was
mother
going
was there.
taking place. But my attorney, he had told Deborah that he was going to put on as a witness, but he never put on as a witness. So as a witness, she couldn't be in the trial in the courtroom to hear any other testimony. So that's why Deborah
To
was
influence
there.
that. I gotcha. Okay. Wow.
So you had a
Incredible.
newborn baby when you found out the news that the decision was made and it was a 35-year sentence.
Yes.
So what did you do as far as support? That had to have been so hard as a young, married, but single mother.
It was very hard. And I had been working for Southwestern Bell for 2 years before they went over into AT&T. And my father helped me along the way. I had my brother and my sister.
So you had lots of family support.
Well, I had family support, yes.
And how about on your end, Ben? How was those first several months in incarceration?
It was hectic. I mean, when I was first arrested, I always believed that the truth would prevail and that I would eventually go home,
Right.
So I just knew when I went to trial that I would be found not guilty and that I would return to my life on the outside. However, that wasn't the case. I was convicted, as I said, twice. And I believe I was sent to prison in June of 1988. It was in the middle of the summer. It was hot. When I got to prison, I mean, of course, it was lonely, and I at the time I had an appeal going on, and so now I'm hoping that the appeal works in my favor.
Of course.
That the case is overturned and I get to go home soon. And that wasn't the case as well. I believe it was the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. They denied the application of appeal, so I was stuck with a life sentence.
So one blow after another after another. What did that do to you psychologically?
It was tough. I mean, first of all, I was being sentenced to a life sentence. I didn't think I'd ever see freedom again. And back then I was young, so I just knew that the world would end before I had a chance to be free again.
Yeah.
And but it was hard being away. And of course, Deborah, she was coming to visit me, every now and then she would bring BJ. And I really didn't like seeing him in prison, but I enjoyed seeing him because he was my son.
Of course, yeah.
It was our only child. So it was always exciting to have visits, but when the visit was over, it was depressing because they got to go back to their lives on the outside. And of course, I went back to my life on the inside.
Yeah.
So as far as seeing your son and Deedee, how often did you get to see each other?
Well, at first it was Deedee would come down quite frequently, sometimes 2 or 3 times a month, if not 4. But as time went on, I was kind of trying to convince her to kind of go on with her life. After the appeal was denied, I didn't feel that it was right for her to be tied down to me, and I was incarcerated.
And Deedee, you were so faithful and devoted. And I know you have a strong faith and a wonderful walk with the Lord. And I just admire you so much. So
thank you.
how did you get through this?
It was definitely the grace of God and my husband, because there was times that I thought I couldn't make it. And there was one time that I actually told Ben that I didn't believe in God because I didn't see how this could be happening to our family and our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, he said, listen, there is a God.
Mm-hmm.
He said he is with us through this.
Mm-hmm. And he has been. I mean, so let's talk about the day you find out you're being released. So walk us through that awesome day.
Before we get there, what was the process that led to the eventual release?
Well, of course, I started writing an organization out of New Jersey called Centurion Ministries. And it gave me some hope, but it also I didn't know if I would ever receive the help that I was seeking because they received so many requests from people all over the United States plus Canada. But anyway, they took my case around 2000, 2001, and they began to beat the streets trying to find witnesses. And of course, they would find witnesses, and then he hired an attorney by the name of Cheryl Wadley. She put together a writ in my behalf of constitutional grounds where they thought I should have relief on. So it finally made it to be heard in the year 2007 by Judge Rick Magnus. He heard the case. He took a week hearing the case, and at the end of the week, he took about a year before he made a ruling on actual innocence. And I believe he really thought that things would work in my favor. So it went to the Court of Criminal Appeals, of course, and for 3 years they had the case. And in 3 years, I want to say a little over 3 years, they decided to deny the relief that the judge said he
Is
thought
that
I
normal
deserved.
that it takes that long for them to work through that process? Were they dragging their feet, or is this is just the normal way that the system works?
Well, I think it's normal. I think they normally take a few years to review the case because the Court of Criminal Appeals, they hear cases throughout. I mean, every county sends cases to the Court of Criminal Appeals, so they have a lot of cases to hear. And so I guess it's just normal. They normally take, on average, I think they take about 3 years to rule.
Okay.
I mean, they can rule in a shorter period, but
So they
it's
initially
normally
denied
about
it.
3. Yes.
And then what happened?
Well, after they denied it, of course, I kept trying to talk my attorney into going to take it to the federal court, and she kept saying she didn't want to go to the federal court just yet. And so they kept looking for other constitutional grounds that they believed were violated. And so, of course, they began to find witnesses. Some more people came into the picture, which is this attorney by the name of Gary Udishin, an investigator by the name of Darrell Parker, and a journalist by the name of Barbara Haggerty. So when they got involved, of course, Darrell and Barb, they started kind of beating the streets looking for these witnesses again. And they were very instrumental in getting or talking to these witnesses, and eventually the witnesses began to talk. There was an inmate who had testified that I had confessed this offense to him, and he admitted to them that he knew how to play the game, and it was just about trying to help himself, not about telling the truth. It was just about trying to get a lesser sentence to help him get out of prison. Then one of the witnesses who lived in the neighborhood, he admitted that he lied and that this lady, Gladys Oliver, had put him up to it.
Wow. Goodness. And so when did the court finally rule in your favor? How many years ago later was that?
It was after the Court of Criminal Appeals had denied it. It was about 11 years.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
So it seems like you get knocked down. There's a glimmer of hope. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, this is going to be it. And then it's knocked down again. And then there's a glimmer of hope and it's knocked down again. Every time it's 3 to 7 years later.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So this is where, we brought you in with this podcast. So give us an example of you're not feeling good. What is the process? Say, like you're having a headache, you have a migraine. Mm-hmm. Like what is the process when you're in prison and you're convicted of this crime, but you need medical attention? How does it work?
Well, you put in of course they do walk-ins, but walk-ins, you sit in the infirmary for hours and then you probably get told that you're not going to see anybody. But of course you can put in a sick call, which is a request that you fill out a piece of paper and tell, and you send it to the infirmary and then they'll call you out. They'll lay you in and call you out. And generally, I don't know what the medical system is like down there now, but back in the day, it was horrible. I mean, most people that went to the infirmary, they felt like they was playing games just to try to get out of work.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of hard getting proper medical attention. They might tell you to take Tylenol. In fact, I know of individuals who actually went to the infirmary and were told to go back to their cells and take a Tylenol. Nothing wrong with them. And the next day, these individuals were dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is there any option for you to advocate for him? So if he's telling you, I'm not feeling well and I'm not getting the care I needed, can you intervene on his behalf at all?
There's nothing I can do.
Nothing.
I did call his attorney and complain about how he was being treated a couple of times, but that was nothing she could do.
Wow.
I mean, you're basically at the mercy of those guards. And
right.
Wow. Well, I know you will both have a strong relationship with the Lord. And so in prison, were there any type of ministries you could be involved in, Bible studies, support groups? Like there had to be some good or was there anything to look forward to?
Yes. I mean, they had a number of religious programs, spiritual counseling. I don't think it's as great as it once was. I mean, they had so many ministries coming in, so many Bible studies you could take. But over the years, I think they have limited the people who are coming in, and especially with COVID taking place, it's kind of pretty much shut down so to speak. They still have chapel services, but it's not as, used to have something going on every night, every day in prison, as far as going to the chapel and hearing the word of God. And it's been cut down, like I said.
Well, that's kind of the same thing in healthcare that we've seen is where during COVID, they couldn't do activities, just
Right.
they didn't want people to be around other people, the isolation. And now that continues, and it's so sad. There's no excuse, but I think they've just gotten into a pattern
Right.
of it's just easier on the staff, actually. But Deedee, I know you are, I've helped you collect some books. I know that you are collecting books for prison ministry. So tell me what you're doing with some of the things that you've learned through Ben to help others. Just give me some examples of some things you're doing.
Well, I have a friend at church, and she collect books to send down to one of the prisons, and I help with that. And I just recently retired, so I'm just getting to have free time right now.
Why books? Did you find while in prison that there's just not enough resources like that?
Well, I know when Ben was in prison that Jim McCluskey and his office would always send him books.
Okay.
So I know they needed those resources.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's awesome. So let's talk about your reunion 2 years ago. So it was March of 2020. Am I correct on the
No,
date?
2021.
Of our reunion.
You're right.
When you came back home.
2021.
Oh,
when you
yeah.
came
March
back
March
home.
12th.
12th.
Yeah, 2021.
2020.
So talk about that day.
Well, first, before you go there, when did you find out you were going to be released? And then how long after, thank goodness, I'm finally being released,
Well,
did
actually,
you actually get released?
I was on the phone. It was a Friday, and of course, the judge for some reason, I don't know what was going on, but everybody was kind of impatient. My lawyer, Deborah, my mother, everybody was impatient. It was like, well, the judge is taking too long. Why she just won't sign off on it? I was like, give her the time to do what she needs to do. So anyway, she had said it was going to be the following week before she heard the case. And so I'm on the phone talking to Deborah, and she's telling me, well, it don't look like you're going to get released, so I think I'm going to go to Houston with Ken and Laura, which is some of our friends. And I said, well, okay, we'll go ahead and go to Houston and, try to just forget about everything, have a good time. And so while I'm talking to her on the phone, my advocate, which is Jim McCluskey for Centurion Ministry, he's trying to call Deborah, but she's not answering the phone
You can't
because she's
click
talking
over.
to me.
You click over, it disconnects him.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. Gotcha.
So I'm
And
talking.
meanwhile, he's trying to call you to give you the news.
Yeah, but Ben never called on a Friday. He always called every Saturday morning. And just by the grace of God, we were on the phone that Friday when all this started happening.
Wow.
Yeah, and so while I'm talking to her, this female guard that's working the floor that I'm on, she comes and she said, come on, Spencer, we're going to take you down to the court. You got some papers to sign. I said, okay. She said, hurry up, you need to come on because we're trying to get you out of here. I'm like, huh? So she said, hurry up and get dressed so we can get you out of here. So I said, okay. I said, they want me to go sign some papers. So Deborah's trying to holler at me and tell me not to sign anything.
It's a trap.
But the guard is steady rushing.
After all the stuff you guys have been through, I don't blame you. Like, no,
don't
yeah.
sign
This is a
anything.
trick.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the guard she's telling me, come on, Spencer, we got to get you out of here. So I tell her, I gotta go. So I hang up the phone. So I get dressed and they take me downstairs to a holdover. Then they take me up on I think it was the 7th floor of the court, Frank Crowley Court building. And so I'm up there waiting in the holdover. And so my attorney comes out and said, they're going to have a hearing. It's going to be a Zoom hearing. I said, okay. So now there's a bailiff that comes out there and he's telling me that I'm going home today. I'm like, well, I'm not going home today. The judge already said she's not going to sign anything till next week. So anyway, long story short, we go in and the judge, she's not in the
I
courtroom,
haven't
but she's
told
on
my
Zoom.
part.
Oh, you haven't told you?
No. So while he's gone to do all this signing, I'm like, he shouldn't sign any paper. And I see all this stuff on the news. So I look at my caller ID and I see Jim is trying to call me. So I call Jim, I go right to his voicemail. So I call Barb, which is the journalist that's doing the book and everything. She just happened to be downtown interviewing Ben's best friend that was in prison with him. So Barb doesn't answer. So I call, and I don't know they're together.
Yeah.
Then I call William, he doesn't answer. Then I call William's wife and she answers and tell me where they are and what they're doing. And I was like, okay, that's good, but you have to go in there and interrupt Barb because Barb had told me that if anything goes down, call me first.
Yeah.
Because she have the news media and everything. So Janetta goes in and she tell Barb, y'all have to cut the interview. Ben is going to have a hearing. So by that time, Jim calls me back and he said, I need you throw on some clothes and get downtown. You need to be down there by 1:30.
Did you know he was being released at that point?
No.
You did
we
not.
were just going
This
for
was
a
just
hearing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was getting ready to go to Houston. So
There
I
goes the
told
trip.
my
Yeah.
friends, y'all just go eat, after the hearing. I'll come back to the house and meet y'all here and we'll go on to Houston.
Wow. So what happens at the hearing?
So we have the hearing, and Deborah, my son, and my mother's there. And my
Only
attorney.
3 people could be there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so the judge, she lets us know that she's going to sign off on my release. So I'm still not thinking I'm going home today because it's right at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, somewhere off in there. I think it's 3 o'clock. And so normally TDC shuts down it's a Friday, so people trying to get out early. And so they normally go home around about 3:30, 4 o'clock. So I know that even though this judge signed his paper, that TDC is not going, no one's going to be there to sign off for my release from TDC. So somehow some strings were pulled, and within an hour of this judge signing his paper, I was walking out the front door.
Wow.
Corey Session. What does Corey do?
Corey says his brother was one of the posthumous exonerees. He died in prison, but he was exonerated after he had died in prison from asthma, I believe it was. But his brother is a big advocate in actual innocence cases, as well as trying to help people that are in prison. Yeah.
Wow.
So Corey Session told me, he said, we're going to push these papers through and he'll be out this evening. I'm like, what? He said, if you walk over to the jailhouse, he should be out in 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I was like, this is not happening today. He said, yes, it is.
Incredible.
That's amazing.
And that's the video that we see,
Yes.
right, when he's coming out. Okay. And that's the first time you've seen him,
Yes.
yeah, free.
Mm-hmm.
In how many years?
34.
34 years. Wow.
And you two remarried last year. It was a
Yes.
wonderful occasion.
Thank you.
So just tell us, I know our time is limited, but just tell us a little bit briefly about just that wedding day. And I know I was there. I was so honored to be there, but just tell us just how it felt to remarry and have friends that support you and love you there for you guys.
I mean, it was exciting for me. I mean, I really had hoped that I could always have Deborah back as my wife, and of course, I now do. And so, I mean, I was just ecstatic that we had recommitted ourselves to each other.
Awesome.
It was the perfect day for me. Everything went as planned. Laurie really engineered my entire wedding. I just sat back and appeared, and it was beautiful.
That's awesome.
It was.
So what's next for you guys now?
Well, we're still waiting on the Court of Criminal Appeals to rule in the case, and from then, who knows? I would definitely like to get involved in prison ministry more than I am now, as well as advocating for those who are still in prison, parole. I think there's there needs to be something done about the parole system in Texas. It's broken. People who go to prison, they go there most of them go there for crimes that they've committed. But however, there are guys down there who follow the rules, and they're doing everything they can to try to get back home to their families. And for some reason or another, they're always set off, and I just think that's unfortunate that the parole board doesn't acknowledge the fact that they're doing all the things that they can do to acquire this privilege of being paroled, and it's like dangling a carrot before them, and of course they never catch hold to it, and so it's horrible.
Wow.
So tell us about, I know John Grisham is involved, and you've got a documentary. Can you briefly tell us what's going on with your book?
Yeah. Well, Barbara Haggett is writing a book, and I think it entails several stories, but I think my case is probably like the nucleus of it. And the documentary, they're working on trying to find a network to help produce it, where they could show it on like Netflix or something like that. And so they're working on that right now.
Wow.
That's awesome. Well, in the Bible, it says God redeems the day, and he has redeemed the day for you guys. And we're just so honored to have you as our first guest.
Thank you.
Just thank you for sharing your story. And it's just been a blessing to me.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a blessed week.
Thank you. You do the
You
same.
too.